progress in relation to the D90 discovery. One of the first steps always when building a kit for me is to get the chassis done. So in this case, I've converted and moved all the original Boom Racing chassis rails out, replaced them with the Team Raffee, and now I understand the reason for the Team Raffee rails. Basically, they are longer, the body mounting positions are wider as well, and that essentially makes for a perfect fit for the D90. When on, it'll mount via a couple of screws on either side here. And I've discovered, in fact, that the rear bumper has a couple of round mount points that actually will jam into these three holes here. So this mounting system is a very neat, perfect solution for this shell and will hold the shell very rigidly onto the chassis. Now, one of the key reasons to make sure that you've built the chassis and start to test fit the shell is to make sure that items such as the receiver plate, where the speed control is going to sit, where the motor is going to mount, are all clearing the body shell properly. And if not, to start thinking about how I'm going to rejig the electronics or the shell. In using the Team Raffee rails, there was only one key problem with that, and it was that these screw holes that were pre-drilled for the battery mounting position had not been drilled through properly. So I had to get a 2mm drill and drill the holes all the way in before I could get this seated properly. The only other thing to take note of, I had to move this plate underneath, where previously it was sitting on top of this cross brace here. I moved it to under the cross brace, and in fact it works well because it gives me more room to mount the ESC under the flatbed at the back. In relation to the shell, all the parts, whether they had openings for the door or the bonnet or the sunroof, had the reinforcements in place and ensured that there was no cracking of these more delicate parts of the shell. To cut them out, the easiest solution is always to use some of these flat cutters. I would usually go and use them and just score across the edge, or in this case it's easy enough to just clip straight through. But if they're wider as they were for the bonnet, for the windscreen, for the doors, you have to use them more as a scribe. And then you would just scribe along the position until it weakened, and then you could push it through. Then after that, you would use a round file to file across. Interesting enough, it doesn't work as well if you use a flat file because it gets caught on the ridges. So I always use a round file when I'm filing off any remaining sprue marks. So that's where we are right now. Chassis plate done, body shell beginning to understand how I'm going to fit it. So that's it for the body shell now. From here, I will look at the instructions, beginning to understand further what are the next lots of parts to be mounted on the shell, and in turn start to make a plan of attack in relation to the painting. Once that starts to progress, and as I encounter further issues, I will again update on the video. So the shell has been sprayed. We're still waiting on a final clear coat to be put on top, and at that point I will do a full polishing to make it very shiny, given that this is a matte paint job. You can see that rubber surrounds have already been done. You can also see that internally I've already sprayed the roof and all internal pillars in black. The reason that I do this is that what I prefer is when I look under a shell, whether it be through a window or through an open door, that I always see a dark color. To see plastic body color just shows that the shell is unfinished and just makes it appear slightly more toy-like. We've even sprayed the rest of the underside of the shell as well to be black. Masking of the shell was done using Tamiya masking tape, and that is required when you're doing the surrounds for the black. I always spray paint, I never use brushes because brush strokes will always be seen. Before the painting was done, I did a first test fit of all the plastic components without paint. And that invariably is needed because there will be parts that just don't fit perfectly. Some sanding was required, for example, to the roof inner mounts, etc., to allow everything to fall and seat nicely into place. And only once that is all perfectly done, at that point do I start putting the paint onto the shell. Also take note that you want to make sure you paint the inner portions of the lights so that the light housings are chrome or silver, so that by the time you've put the clear lights onto the shell, it'll have a silver color internally and will reflect the lights better. Underneath the roof, I will also look to put a upholstery material, and in that respect, I've got a lot of this studio cork material that I bought from a handicraft store, and I use this for a lot of my builds, whether it be for carpeting or for roof lining. It contours very well because it's slightly heavy and has this slightly dense backing. And on top of that, it's a great absorber of paint. So it can be spray painted or it can be dyed if chosen. So we're going to get to the next stage, which is now to start testing out the arches. I have bought some aftermarket arches. I want to see whether they fit. Thereafter, it'll be a full clear coat, polishing of the clear coat, and then we can begin the detailing of and construction of the shell. So we've made some progress in relation to the Defender D90 body shell. We've done the test fitting previously already, as you saw. We've now begun to actually bolt all the pieces together on the shell. I've thrown on the tires and wheels that came with the boom chassis so that I can start to get a feel for what the body shell is going to look like on the actual chassis. Definitely looks way too high for me at the moment. I've yet to decide exactly what I'm going to do with regards to the suspension. Besides that, the actual shell itself, as you can see based off here, we've now put on the Kahn design front end, which is different to the front end that came with this specific body. I'm still deciding whether I will put the Kahn design arches on. I suspect I will in the end as well. In addition to that, I will just quickly show you behind this here. So this is the grille, and it's got a beautiful mesh that allows you to look behind. Now, the only problem is that there's nothing to actually put behind this with the kit if you don't go and cannibalize this portion, which actually came off the original body kit. So the kit itself had the radiator system behind this, against which the grille was going to be glued on. Underneath, you can see that I've also already done the roof lining. So it's a full roof lining that I've placed inside. Also, as previously described, I've painted the inner portions here all black. And that to me really makes a difference when it comes to realism. The chassis itself, we still have to actually take the gearbox apart and make sure that everything's greased up, built properly. It's a very basic chassis. It used the Team Raffee rails and body mounts to extend the frame to fit the body shell. Besides that, everything else is standard. I will be looking to modify the shocks because I think this sits too high. There'll be a bumper that will go on the back of this, as well as a cage that I will fit to the body shell later. So that's just a quick look at where we're at the moment. I will be doing more videos as and when this progresses. This is going to be a bit of a slow build as I'm still working through parts, and being stuck in COVID-19 lockdown, unable to buy things such as paint, etc., will make this a bit of a slower process. But please do keep watching and do stay safe. Thank you.